Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am super excited here to be interviewing my guest for today, Mike. And just to tell you guys a little bit about Mike, he has flipped over 80 houses by the age of 30 at a very young age. And he has also created multiple companies that has generated over $1 million in revenue every year. And on top of that, he is also the founder of Real Estate Wealth Builders, which is a company helping other people learn how to build wealth and residual income in real estate, as well as a best-selling author. So this gentleman has accomplished quite a few things in really a short period of time. So he has definitely a lot to share as far as the journey of being an entrepreneur, the journey of being a real estate investor, and also different avenues when it comes to investing in real estate and how to jump between them and how to juggle them at the same time as well. But Mike, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, man. Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. We're excited to have you. And just before we get started on anything, would you mind just kind of sharing your story a little bit, telling us a little bit about, how you were able to accomplish all of these things by, only age 30?
Yeah, so I'm very blessed. Kind of, you did a really great job at the intro. Like you said, I buy, fix, and flip houses. We do about 20 houses per year up in Michigan. I now live in South Carolina, so I flip houses virtually. I have over 60 apartment rentals that pay me every single month. And very blessed to have an amazing team and systems and processes in place to allow me to do that. So like you said, like what got me into it? Um, so something I truly, really believe in is mindset because what separates where you are at today from where you want to be in the future is really all in your head. I promise you. Like I coach so many people and they didn't even realize like things that were possible, right? Um, like we bought like one of my I bought an 11 unit apartment building, my first apartment. I bought it with none of my own money because I found the deal and I found the guy with the money. I managed the rehab, and now this thing's worth $500,000 more than what we paid for it. And I tell that to people and they're like, oh my God, like there's no way, right? But I'm like, no, it's totally a way. Like there's people out there with money. So I want to kind of take a step back and talk about mindset. So when I was 13 years old, I was actually diagnosed with a disease called Crohn's disease, which is kind of like an ulcer in your stomach. So like every time you ate, you kind of like it hurts really bad. And I was on 16 different medications every single day. I was supposed to go to the hospital once a month. They hooked up to an IV, and it that taught me a lot that life is very precious. That tomorrow isn't always promised, and to take life very seriously. Um, because when you're a young man, 13 years old, young kid, and you could like break your leg and then like a week later go run a marathon because you heal like Wolverine, like just instantly, right? Like life is like amazing. So that experience really taught me how precious life is. And from 13 to 16, I was on that route. And then I fell in love with Jack Canfield's work. Chicken Soup for the Soul is one of his biggest things. I watched the movie The Secret 18 times in a 3 year span because there's a lady who was on there who had breast cancer and with no medication, but eating right, working out, just being in a good state of mind, believing that you're healed, she was able to overcome cancer with no medication, with nothing else, no radiation. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's so cool. If she can do it, I can do it, right? Um, and then from 16 cents, and I actually just turned 31 a few days ago. So I don't know, going on 15 years now. I've not been to the doctors, I haven't taken any medication. And I would say with mindset and God on my side, I was healed myself, right? So at a young age, I learned how powerful your mind is and what you say positive, negative things, how it can affect your life. Um, so from 30, I've worked my whole entire life. So, at 16 years old, I started working at McDonald's. The legal limit you can work at was just 20 hours a week. I'm going to school 35 hours a week and then working 20 hours a week. And I realized like even working that much for $6.55 an hour at the time, you know, I I had my car, my insurance, my gas, my cell phone, and I had a girlfriend, and I was like broke. And that's when I discovered the rat race. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm working 20 hours a week and I don't really have any bills. Like I don't have a mortgage to pay. I don't have health insurance. I'm not really paying for food. I'm living at home with mom and dad and I'm still broke. Like this is not scalable. This is not sustainable. Like I can't live off minimum wage. So at a young age, it kind of taught me like I need to go for it and not have not work and live on a minimum wage income.
Yeah, so that's a really, I would say, a really cool story that you have, and because you basically kind of took the journey I think a lot of people go through in their like maybe mid 30s or 40s, but you went through it when you were 13 years old, right? Because you
Yeah.
discovered that life is precious based on an experience that's most people consider negative, but you really were able to kind
Mm.
of turn it around based on I'll just say your attitude towards it and kind of how you were able to approach the situation. So walk us through that maybe a little bit. So I don't know a lot of 13-year-olds or 16-year-olds that has watched The Secret even once, and you say you watched it like a
Yeah.
million times. So,
Mhm.
what was it that kind of that grabbed your attention about The Secret and these kind of different ways of thinking? Because I would think as a 13-year-old, that's not something that appeals to most people. So,
Yeah, no, and that's very true. And honestly, so it's funny you said that. So that experience was the biggest blessing that's ever happened in my life. And most people take it as a negative. But I was able to turn into a positive um, because my back was against the wall. Like when you're going through this, I lost like I think like 20 pounds, and I'm a short guy. I'm 5'6", and like losing 20 pounds at 13 years old is a lot of weight because it was more painful to eat than it was to not eat. So I was just starving myself because I didn't want to go through the pain. Every time I'd eat, I'd be in the bathroom for hours. Just pain like that like I had my come to Jesus moment in the bathroom. I seriously was like, I would rather die than live this way. Like no joke. So I think and that taught me a lot too. When your back's against the wall, like your true colors come out. Like are you fight or flight? Are you gonna do everything you can? And I didn't know anyone who overcame Crohn's disease with positive mindset, eating right, and exercise. It's a disease you have for the rest of your life. But I'm like, it's this or the life I have now, and that's not acceptable to me. So I'm gonna go for it. And I at that point, and I feel like there was no other like, what could I do? Just like lay over and die, basically. So
and that's a great attitude to have, I think, for any problems, whether big or small, in this world that we all experience, right? It doesn't matter if we have the most serious issue in the world, or something small happened to us. It's always just kind of based on our attitude. We can turn something that's very very small, very insignificant, into a huge issue and let us overtake us, or we can do what people like you are doing, which is taking it as almost treating it as a blessing and figuring out ways to better improve your life and eventually, leading you to become the success in real estate that you are today. So kind of, on that note, would you say, kind of overcoming a lot of that at a very, very young age, kind of dealing with some serious, serious health issues, would you say that kind of helped you maybe transition better into being an entrepreneur? I wouldn't say, made it maybe made it easier, but did it, maybe make it a little bit easier for you to deal with some of the issues in the business world because you dealt with those issues in the past?
yeah, so I realized that all the problems I go through every day in my real estate, we have 6 houses right now that we're flipping. They're for sale right now. And any problem we have with the house is not a real problem. All it is a money problem. It's not a life-threatening problem. It's like fake problems, if that makes sense. It's not life-threatening, it's not life-altering. I'm the worst case, I lose a little bit of money. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. I mean, and when you take a step back and you can I think a lot of people get tunnel vision and you magnify these problems like, oh my God, all these things that could go wrong. But I'm like, is it really that bad? And I know now I can crawl myself out of any situation I put myself in, right? Um, if I have to go fix up the house myself, I will, right? If I have to make phone calls and find new contractors and find new lenders and investors and network and like I'll do whatever it takes to crawl myself out of any hole I put myself in. And I believe kind of going through that experience did help me realize that. Um, and then just realizing too that the problems that I have in my business life really aren't real problems. That people have it, way worse than me. They walk every day for dirty water in other countries, and that's a normal, everyday life occurrence. For me, I'm just worried about how much money I'm making, bills are paid, food's on the table, and so I think I just kind of realize, you know, that my problems aren't real problems.
Yeah, and that's a good attitude to have towards, towards your business. And you train a lot of people as well in real estate and in business. So when you're I guess like when you're training people and when they run into issues, maybe they haven't gone through as severe of an experience as you had at such a young age, do you feel that a lot of times, just from maybe your perspective, that maybe even especially I would say newer investors or people who are newer in business, but even people who have been in business for a while, that they do treat problems maybe a little bit more serious than it actually is, and that actually hinders their performance to solve those problems?
So, very good question. Everyone in anything they start off in, I feel like a lot of new real estate investors, they think the world's always falling apart. The like the steel's gonna fall apart. Like I'll never forget this one that I helped out my buddy Brandon and a deal he had up in Boston, and he was like, "Oh my God, the seller's not gonna show, like, not gonna sell me the property. Like after he got under contract, trust me, he wants to sell it. He's older, he wants to get rid of it." And then he was like selling it. He's like, "The buyer's not gonna show up. I'm gonna be stuck with this property. The buyer's not gonna come to the closing table. I'm gonna be there all alone." I'm like, "Don't worry about it. They'll show up." Like, and I see a lot of that with new people. Like they kind of because you don't know what you don't know. You don't, and you're thinking you're worried about all these problems that aren't real problems or things that aren't going to really come to fruition. And that's what people really get analysis paralysis. I see a ton of analysis paralysis. Um, and what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur is going out, taking chances, being willing to fail, and then learn from those failures and then just keep going. And I tell everyone, your first property is your hardest property. It's the scariest. Like I'll never forget my first property. I was like sweating bullets. It felt like a flashbang grenade went off, and I was like, oh my God, I just made the worst financial decision of my whole entire life. Like, what am I doing? And then, because I didn't know what was behind drywall, I didn't know it was 2x4s, 16 inches apart, insulation, plumbing, electrical. I had no idea. But I just like, you know what? I'll figure it out. I'll go on. Thank God for YouTube. How to tile. I'm going like YouTubing everything and just figure it out like a step at a time. Um, and that's what it takes to be, successful is be willing to take action, learn from it. And then what I highly, highly, highly recommend doing is especially in the real estate space, we're very blessed, but I'm sure in a lot of spaces, go to your events in your industry events. Like I go to real estate events all the time. I'm throwing my actually first one in Key West in a week. And I go to marketing events like, Russell Brunson's ClickFunnels. Like I go to all these different events and you get to learn and grow from people who have overcame problems that you're currently in. And to them, it's so small, right? Like when someone comes up to me with a single family house, like, oh no, like this little problem, I'm like, dude, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. That's like, so it's always good to surround yourself with people who are at where you want to be and ask them for advice because they're gonna like shine some light and be like, trust me, it's not a big deal. I'm gonna help calm you down.
Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, that's the struggle, right? When they haven't been through something, they see it as the end of the world if, something goes wrong. But for people who have been through it, they can look back and, you say, time heals everything, right? So you look back and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
that wasn't such a big issue at the point that I was stressing out so much about this. And now looking back, it's not such a big deal and it's easily solvable. But you do have to go through that struggle process, right? So you have to, I
yeah.
think, as as an entrepreneur, especially in real estate, you have to be able to take action with the best intent, expecting the best to happen, but also being able to accept different, A, C, C, P, T,
Prepare for the
accept
worst.
the
Yeah,
worst, right?
yeah.
The worst situation as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. So kind of pivoting a little bit on the topic. So you mentioned that you are currently doing a lot of virtual flipping. So this is probably something that I think a lot of people might be interested in or might be, curious about how that might work. We've heard about
Hmm.
virtual wholesaling, but how are you flipping properties virtually? across state lines? How does that system, how does that process look?
Very good question. So it's first started off in my own backyard. Like I said, I'm from Michigan, Metro Detroit, and I was born there, and I got sick of the cold. And I got to a point where I flipped so many houses, it gets boring, it gets repetitive. I've seen 1,000 moldy houses. I've flipped over 80, maybe I don't even know how much it is. I got to update it, 90 something, maybe 100 houses, whatever it is. And I got to a point where it was like really boring because it's just I've McDonaldized the whole flipping system. So I created a 350 line Excel spreadsheet of all my materials I get from a Home Depot, and so I know exactly like all of our houses look the same. I took the McDonald's Big Mac, the concept of anywhere you go, New York, to Chicago, to LA, Miami, Russia, wherever, it's the same ingredients, it tastes the same. So that's what I did to our houses. It's the same flooring, doors, trim, cabinets, paint, everything. And that eliminates a lot of change orders. It saves a ton of time. My contractors know exactly which products to get. Um, and it's so now all my contractors, it's funny, I just sent them an address, 123 Pleasant Street. 4 weeks later, the house is done and we're ready to list the house. Like it's gotten to kind of boring, and I'm very blessed to have done that. And I have an amazing team. So I brought on a partner a year and a half ago. His name's David. He's my boots on the ground, and he can take 100 photos of a house, and now he's really good at estimating renovation costs. But he can take 100 photos of a house. We have an app and I can see it, so I go through, I'm like, okay, replace this, maybe a $40,000 rehab. So within like 3 minutes we can come up with how much it's going to cost to renovate it. I have Olivia, who's in my company. She's my office manager. She does all the paperwork for the title companies, lists our houses, pulls comparables. So we're like, hey, Olivia, we can maybe buy this house for 100,000. We're gonna put 40,000 into it. What is it gonna be worth when it's done? She's pulling comps. Okay, it's gonna be worth about 200,000. Okay, cool. It's gonna be worth 200, closing costs, fees, everything. We'll make 30,000. Add it to the conveyor belt, and we'll buy it. So that's how the process. That's our flipping process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I like what you said there about you McDonaldized the process of flipping,
Mhm.
right? Because that eliminates a lot of I would say the guessing and I would say the variables involved in flipping. And so you guys are doing this across every market, right? So this would be essentially applicable across every market, or is this only in the specific market that you guys are flipping in?
Good question. So, um, we are in two counties really in Michigan because we have three crews and they drive around there. Um, and then now I've been buying multifamily apartments. So that is what we're doing more virtually. Like I bought a 19 unit in August of this year, last year, and a couple months ago. And I don't know any contractors. I don't know the market. So this was kind of fun for me. I had to interview 25 different contractors. So it's funny. Everyone asks like, how do you find a good contractor? I called two and none of them called me back. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm no different. I called 25 in 2 days. That's all I did. I blocked out 16 hours of work and I called 25 contractors, right? And and that was fun for me because it's like I still haven't met the contractor in person, and he's renovating 5 of the units right now. I'm actually going to go up there in a few weeks to go look at it and check out the project. He sends me photos. Um, but yeah, and then I actually just had an offer accepted this morning on 44 units in Kentucky, and same thing. I don't know anyone out there, but the thing is, like, and I tell everyone like the skills that you're learning along the way of like I teach a lot in like marketing, finding discounted properties, uh, capital, raising money for your deal, and then project management. Like these skills are needed in any industry. Marketing, capital, and project management. You can take these to any industry and be successful. And the nice thing is maybe you start off in single family houses. You start off with one, and then you learn these skills, and you can do two, and then now we're doing 20 a year. And then now I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm bored of this. Let's go do apartments. It's the same thing, just more zero stuff, making, 30,000 a house. We're making $600,000 a building. And so it's a lot of the same concept. It's just floors, doors, trim, cabinets. And it's just taking the same skills I've refined for 10 years and now just take them to a different sector. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think for every business, right? It's applicable, right? Those three skill sets: marketing, capital raising, and project management, right? It's pretty much across the board that you
Yeah.
need those three skill sets. It doesn't matter what you're doing. So as far as you're teaching a lot of newer flippers or newer real estate investors. What would your advice to be, for them to either focus on, would you give them the same advice that, to focus on systems in the beginning, or should they just try to be figuring things out first, and then as they figure out what works, then document that, and then, and then turn into a system? Because I think for a lot of people, they might be trying to systemize things too early, and then end up systemizing something that doesn't even work, right? So.
Good question. So there's like two things. Everyone knows what's that? Like the procrastination. It's like when you keep like researching something over and over and over again, just procrastinating, right? Like trying to get it perfect. I heard this one saying and it said it perfect. It says like um uh sloppy success is better than perfect mediocrity. So like sloppy success is better than perfect mediocrity. Going out there and trying it, you're gonna figure it out. Like you can't build a system if you've never flipped a house on how to do it. You gotta like first do it, right? The first thing is like get one. And whatever you do too, I see a lot of people they're trying. It's funny. They want to flip houses. Like I'm gonna get my real estate license so I can go flip houses. I'm like, you don't need a real estate license to go flip houses. And then they get stuck being a realtor and they never buy a flip. I see this so many times. And then people who like, I'm gonna flip, I'm gonna wholesale, I'm gonna sell real estate, I'm going to do apartments, I'm going to do all these, different things. It's like none of it's gonna work out. I promise you. Trust me, I've tried. That's why I know that. Like stick with one thing until success. What I did is I flipped 40 houses before I bought my first rental. Usually I see a lot of flippers are like they flip a house and they'll try to buy a rental. I'll flip two houses, try to buy a rental. I flipped 40 houses before I bought a single rental because I got all the systems and process in place. I need a cash money machine. I didn't have a job. I actually retired my father through this industry as well. He was my project manager. I brought him on. I make sure he made six figures a year, only worked 20 hours a week. So I wasn't worried about rentals trying to make $200 a month per house. Like I was worried about, making $35,000 as fast and as many times as possible. And until I got to a point to where I was hiring people to then do my position for me, and then I was spending very little of my time on that uh, business. Then I focused on buying rentals. And in the last 3 years, I've bought 60 rentals, more than most people who have tried to flip a house, then buy a rental. Try to flip a house, buy a rental. I stayed focused on something. Now I got a 44 unit on a contract, so I'll be at over 100 rentals, right? And you're able to grow a lot faster just by focusing on one thing, focus on one course of action until success, the acronym for focus, and become the best at it because you're in competition with a lot of other investors in your market, and you have to be the best and know your numbers, know the area. Like I knew, the zip codes where we flip in, how much, you just tell me an address, how many uh square feet bed and bathroom, I'll tell you what the house is worth. Right. So like I just got to that point where I was like the best in my market. So I recommend sticking whatever course you want to do. It doesn't even have to be real estate, but just become the very best in it. Then also network. If I was in my home office, I'm traveling right now, I have 50 different lanyards I will hold it up, 50 different lanyards over the last 8 years. I spent over $100,000 on real estate and marketing education. Um, and I travel the country all the time, um, learning from the best people, right? So always like invest in yourself.
Yeah. And so that's actually a really good point, because a lot of people, they don't necessarily like to go to these events, right? They don't necessarily network a lot. But there's a lot of people on the flip side of things who go to a lot of events and then get nothing out of it. So just from your experience, right? How would what would you tell somebody who is, planning to go to these educational events, planning to invest in themselves, to, essentially get actually something out of every event, instead of just kind of going to the events and then, maybe having a good time and partying there, but not really, not really getting anything out of it. So what would your advice be, after going to all these different networking events?
So, one, take notes. So, this is something I learned from some very early on. And I take notes, I write word for word. I was at a 4-day event and I turn it into a 27-page Word document of notes. I literally write word for word. I've heard that the most successful people, um, you know, take very detailed notes. So if you go there, take notes because you're gonna leave if you don't, and you're gonna forget half of it in 3 days. And this is something I heard. I thought it was very interesting. So we're in a room when I was in one of my those classes, and there's 100 people, and she's like, half of you are taking notes. The other half of you is already out. You're done. Half of you is taking notes. The other half will review the notes, right? So at least 25 people. Of those 25 people, um, like half of you are going to implement it. So it's only 12 and a half people, right? And then of the people who implement it, only six are going to have some success with it. And only one or two are actually going to be extremely successful, right? The other six are going to like dabble, but only one or two is going to become extremely successful with it. And that's what I notice about these events. Like, it's kind of funny, the 80-20 rule. I'm sure you've heard. I would say 80% of the people I see who come to these events, they come there, they have a really good time. They may or may not take notes, but they do not implement it. They don't do the hard work. It does take a lot of hard work to be successful. Um, but I take very detailed notes. And what I actually do is I go a step further. So if I got 27 pages, then I have another Word document of me taking things out that I'm going to implement in my business and making an action plan from first to last, what I need to do, um, and then I do it. So instead of just going there having fun and not taking notes, and then you leave and you're like, that was great. Yeah, it was a great dopamine rush, but I didn't take anything from it. I'm taking notes, and then I'm taking those notes and creating a step-by-step action plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that's what people need to be doing, right? If they're going to events, it's not just so much listening and taking it in, but also, like you said, making an action plan, right? And obviously do it pretty immediately, like at the event, or you're not gonna do it when you get home
Exactly.
or on the road on the way back. So that's definitely,
And
I would
then
say, something to do.
and then another great thing, which in the beginning I didn't network a lot. I was really focused on my business, like growing it, right? I didn't network. I was like quiet, and I'm just like, I need to make money, which is fine. Now I focus more on the networking side because, especially like in these where I'm at now, like buying, multifamily apartment buildings, it's a team sport. We need to raise $600,000 for this property that we just put in a contract this morning. And where's that money going to come from? It's going to come like from my friends and family and the people I've met from these events as well. And the nice thing is too, from just so many like one-off conversations I've had with people who are way more successful than me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I take like that one thing. And then like, no joke, for 6 years ago, we implemented one thing we do to like how we get our houses ready for sale. And every year we make an extra $100,000 per year from implementing one little system that someone said, like, it was like a 5-minute conversation offhand. And I was like, oh my gosh. So you add that up for the last 7 years, that's $700,000 I've made extra from just listening to someone else, what they do. And I'm, oh my gosh, how can I apply this to my business? And then I do it. So I love going there and networking with people who are like way more successful than me. And you take those little nuggets, and those are always help your business.
Right. Always be, looking for people who've done things that you want to do, right? So that way they can teach you things that you're not currently doing. And these are not like, you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for courses or anything. You can just, like you said, just network and be open-minded. And I do think a lot of people, especially in their kind of like once they start getting a little bit of success and momentum, they tend to kind of shut themselves off from the world, if that makes
Hmm.
sense, to really focus on their
Yep.
business. And I would say it's good that there's an amount of focus there, but maybe you can touch on that a little bit, is how to balance that, right? How to balance your focus versus networking, right? Is there like, do you have like a strategy as far as maybe allocating a certain amount of time intentionally for networking, or is it just you're trying to look for as many opportunities as you can, uh, kind of during your year, during your free time?
Yeah, so when you first start off, I was working in the business. I was doing all the paperwork, I'm finding the houses, like so I was really busy with that. And I've learned so much like about networking. It's so funny, people like and like marketing yourself. So I need to figure out the math, but I know I've made over $1 million just from Facebook by documenting my journey on Facebook, by taking my cell phone out, saying, "Hey, everyone, my name's Mike Menino. We're going to go through this house, rip out the cabinets, the floors, the doors, and the trim. It's going to look awesome when we're done with it. And if you or someone you know has a house they want to sell, give me a call." And I did that for every single house. I would make 3 videos, the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? And by doing that, and this is awesome. Like this is like a higher leverage networking because it's instead of just like one to one, which is great. I believe that. But this is also like one to many networking. And I would post these videos like in maybe small Facebook groups, local ones. And I became known as like my city is like Waterford Flip Kings, right? Anytime someone had a house to sell in Waterford, they'd call us, right? And we had like little banners in front of our houses all over the city and all over Facebook and big goofy photos of like me with a crown, like the Waterford Flip King is really funny. And by doing that, I built a brand of that. And I just had a conversation, gosh, maybe a few months ago now. And he says, and this is so funny. This guy reached out to me on Facebook and he has a photo he hasn't changed in years. It's a photo of his daughter when she was a baby. Now she's a teenager. He's never posted anything. I didn't know we were friends. I don't know who he is. He's never liked anything of my stuff. And he says, we get on a call together. He says, Mike, I have a problem. I've been seeing your journey for 4 years and I love absolutely everything you're doing. And I was like, wow, I had no idea you existed till this call. This, I have a few $1 million I want to invest because inflation's eating away, my money sitting at the bank, and I want to invest in your real estate deals. Do you have any real estate deals? And I was just like, right? Like one person, one connection. And it was because of like one to many networking. It was because like if you follow me on Facebook, we're posting 3 reels a week. I'm constantly posting almost every day, sharing my life, sharing the journey, and I'm building, a brand. And people they feel like they know me. And I get every time I jump on a phone to someone who's followed me, they're like, Mike, I feel like I know you at this point. And I think that right there is like that it helps. It's so much leverage because I'm finding people send me properties. People are giving me money to buy more properties, right? Because um, they got money sitting in the Chase bank account, earning $2 a month, whatever it is, and they need a retirement. So I'm helping them, invest in rentals for that. Um, so in the beginning, like I said, I was really focused on like building my business, and now that I can work on my business instead of in it and do the day-to-day stuff where I can have time and freedom to go on podcasts like this and help and educate and do post on social media and communicate with my network that way. And that's like a better use of time and lever for me than just working inside your business where when I had to be though, because I needed to create that money and I didn't have the money to hire a team at the time.
Right. I love the story that you told about the individual who reached out to you after following your journey for 4 years, because I think a lot of people, they don't post on social media. I would just across the board, right? Agents, investors, people who own other businesses, they, maybe they don't post on social media, or maybe they post a little bit here and there, and then they don't see
Hmm.
the 100,000 followers. They don't get like a million likes on their posts, and they're super discouraged. But that's not the point, right? The point is not to become this huge influencer. The point is there's people watching you, even if they're not present as far as liking or commenting on your photos. And that's what you want, is
I
people who
want to
want
talk to
to.
that too. But sorry to interrupt, but it's so funny. In the beginning, I would get my first video, I get 350 views. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I got 350 views. I got 350 people who saw this video. And other people like, oh my God, that's nothing. Like, I didn't get the millions of views. I'm like, I made a 3-minute video. Took me 3 minutes to make, just before I did editing, and had 350 people. Now I get like a couple thousand, like 1 to 3,000 per video, which I'm like, and I'm doing that 3 times a week. That means I have like 9,000 people per week watching my videos. Like to me, that's amazing. I heard this at Russell Brunson's event. It's a very successful couple. They said if you get 100 people to know, like, and trust you, you never have to worry about money. Your bills are covered. Like you just need 100 people to know, love, and trust you. You get 1,000 people to know, love, and trust you. You'll have so much money you won't even know what to do with it. You don't need millions and millions of people. You only need 100 people and then 1,000 people. And that's my goal is to, I'm feel like I'm working on my first 100. I might be there right now. And then once I get to 1,000, then I'll be like Grant Cardone. We can go buy any building we want after that, right? Um, but it's really that simple. You just only need a few. Don't worry about millions of views.
Right. I love that. I love that. And, even, in your case, that one person, right? Would you say it's, I'll say it's worth it just posting for 4 years, just one person wanting to invest, right? Because it's not, it's effort, but it's not like, you're not looking for, like you said, the millions and millions of people. You're looking for the few
Exactly.
who want to work with you, right? You're trying to accomplish a different goal than maybe the content creators or the influencers
Exactly.
that are
I'm
out
not
that are out
selling a
there.
$12 product, right? Where I need like millions of people to buy it, right? These are multi-million dollar properties and we only need a handful of people to go buy it with us. So that's exactly it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for being on the show today. You shared a lot of value with us, and I want to thank you for that. So for anybody who wants to follow your journey, wants to follow your social media pages, what are some of the best places for people to keep up with you and, what you're doing?
Yeah, so I have if you're interested in fixing and flipping houses, this is a free video I made, how to find a house, how to rehab it and renovate it, and how I made $55,000 on the property. I just documented the whole journey of it. It's a free training I made. And then inside of there is a link to my free Facebook group, Real Estate Wealth Builders, so you can join it. I'm in there. I post almost every day, and I'll answer any of your questions. And my name's Mike Menina. I have a black and white photo on Facebook. I have like 12 or 13,000 followers right now. And that's probably the best way to get in contact with me. And so if you're interested in that, you can go to 55kdeal.com. So it's 55kdeal.com. And yeah, free training. And then we also do every single month, I do a free 3-day event, how to find, fund, and renovate properties as well. Just a way to give back. And I have a ton of fun with it. So.
That's awesome. So we'll make sure to leave that in the description, the show notes down below, and so make it easier for people to reach you. But Mike, want to thank you again for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time. And before I let you off here, was there any last pieces of advice, any last tips you want to leave with us?
You know, there's one book I really like, and I've said his name early in this podcast, but it's Jack Canfield's called The Success Principles. And I love it because it's a very entrepreneurial. So what it is a bunch of parables of entrepreneurs going through struggles and how they overcame those struggles in their business. And it's just a great way to overcome. You see people creatively overcome problems inside their business and look for solutions instead of just like, woe is me, the world, the economy's not as good, where people go out and take action and think outside the box to become extremely successful. So I love that book. It's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. If you are an entrepreneur, I highly, highly, highly recommend reading it or audiobook. I love the audiobook. So that's my last piece of advice.
That's awesome, Mike. Well, thank you for being on the show, and I want to thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next show. Take care.